Have you ever walked into a crowded place and felt your body quietly resist? Not panic, not fear exactly, just a subtle pull to step back, to leave, to find space. Now here's the uncomfortable question. What if that reaction didn't start with your personality, but with your birth month? What if the way your brain handles crowds today was quietly shaped in the first few months of your life before you even formed memories? Because emerging research suggests something strange. People born in winter months may develop a completely different neurological relationship with stimulation, noise, and social intensity. Not because they're shy, not because they lack confidence, but because their brains were calibrated in darkness. Less sunlight, less external input, more internal processing. And that early environment may have left a permanent imprint, one that explains why some people crave crowds while others feel drained just standing in one. So the real question isn't, why do I hate crowds? It's, was I wired this way from the very beginning? Let's break it down. Before personality, before habits, before identity, your brain was under construction. And one of the most overlooked influences during that time, light, or more specifically, the lack of it. If you were born in winter, especially in regions with shorter days, your final stage of development in the womb and your earliest months outside it happened under significantly reduced sunlight. That matters more than you think. Sunlight directly affects vitamin D production, and vitamin D isn't just about bones. It plays a role in brain development, particularly in systems linked to dopamine. Dopamine is what regulates motivation, reward, and stimulation sensitivity. Now here's where it gets interesting. Lower early exposure to sunlight may subtly tune the dopamine system to be more conservative, less dependent on external stimulation for satisfaction. In simple terms, your brain may have learned early on, you don't need a lot of external noise to feel okay. But that's not all. There's another system being calibrated at the same time, your circadian rhythm. Babies born during darker months are exposed to longer nights and shorter days, which can influence how their internal clock develops. That internal clock doesn't just control sleep. It shapes how your body expects energy, activity, and stimulation throughout the day, for life. So if your baseline was set in a low-light, low-stimulation environment, what happens when you're suddenly thrown into a loud, crowded space years later? Your brain doesn't adapt instantly. It resists. Now let's flip the perspective, because what looks like crowd avoidance might actually be something else entirely. Processing style. Some people process the world externally. They think out loud, they engage, they feed off interaction. Others process internally. They observe first, they reflect, they build thoughts quietly before expressing them. And here's the pattern researchers have started noticing. Winter-born individuals are more likely to lean toward internal processing. Why? Because early environments shape survival strategies. In a world with less external stimulation, less light, less activity, fewer environmental signals, the brain compensates by strengthening internal activity. Inner dialogue becomes sharper, reflection becomes deeper. You become less dependent on constant external input. Now fast forward to adulthood. Put two people in the same crowded environment. One thrives on the energy, feels alive, engaged. The other feels overwhelmed, not emotionally, but neurologically. Too much noise, too many signals, too much happening at once. It's not anxiety, it's overload. And your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do.
reduce input, withdraw, rebalance. Now let's talk about something you've probably experienced but never fully understood. Why do some seasons feel more exhausting than others? Spring, summer, weddings, festivals, gatherings. For many people, these are peak social periods, but for others, they're draining, almost suffocating. There's a concept called the social battery. Everyone has one, but not all batteries are built the same. If you were born in high stimulation months, spring or early summer, your early environment likely matched that energy. More light, more activity, more external cues. Your brain adapted to expect and handle that. But winter-born individuals, their baseline is different. Lower stimulation tolerance, faster depletion. So when they're exposed to prolonged social intensity, crowds, noise, constant interaction, their system burns out faster. Not because they're weak, but because their brain is more efficient. It filters aggressively. It shuts down excess. That "I need to leave" feeling, that's not discomfort, that's regulation. And here's the key insight. The more you ignore that signal, the more intense it becomes. Now here's where things take an unexpected turn, because for the first time in history, the world is starting to favor this neurological style. Remote work, digital communication, asynchronous interaction. In 2026, you don't need to be physically present to be socially connected. And for people who naturally prefer controlled, low-stimulation environments, this is a breakthrough. You can choose when to engage, how to respond, how much energy to spend. This concept is called selective presence. Instead of being constantly available in crowded, unpredictable environments, you design your interactions. Deep conversations over shallow noise. Meaningful connection over constant exposure. And suddenly, what once felt like a limitation starts to look like an advantage. But there's a catch. Modern cities, crowded, noisy, overstimulating, are still built for high external processing individuals, which means if you're wired differently, you're constantly adapting to an environment that doesn't match your baseline. And that mismatch, that's where the exhaustion comes from. So let's reframe everything. What if your tendency to avoid crowds isn't a flaw? What if it's a strategy? A built-in system designed to preserve your mental energy, enhance your focus, and protect your cognitive bandwidth? Because when you stop fighting your wiring, something shifts. You stop forcing yourself into environments that drain you. You start optimizing your schedule, spacing out social interactions, choosing smaller groups, prioritizing depth over volume. And you recognize that solitude isn't isolation, it's recovery. And here's where it gets even more interesting. As the world moves toward more personalized lifestyles, remote work, digital communities, niche networks, we're entering what some call the solitude economy. A system where people who prefer controlled, intentional interaction actually thrive. So maybe the real question isn't, why do I fear crowds, but why was I taught that I shouldn't? Because if your brain was shaped in silence, in low light, in a world that demanded internal strength over external noise, then maybe your preference for space isn't something to fix, it's something to understand. And once you do, you stop running from crowds. You simply stop needing them.
Tell me in the comments if any of the facts relate to you or you find any of the aspects missing. Please consider subscribing and give us thumbs up. It will motivate us to bring more studies for you. Till then, take care.